This is going to be two gays making a really strange sports analogy.
I'm ready for it.
But this is kind of like you're the Lakers and you're drafting Tulsi, but her sympathies really lie with the Celtics.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speech Center's 2024 MAGA draft as we approach Inauguration Day. The Trump administration has been slowly assembling their A-team, and it's as chaotic as you would imagine. Joining us, as always, it's Tim Miller.
The noodle boy of rebound. Not the round mound of rebound. Charles Barkley, the noodle boy of rebound.
What is a noodle boy?
You know, sinewy.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Like
I see.
Sinewy white men.
Like a Chalamet.
Yeah.
Like
and so the draft, you know, we're looking for people with length, with sinews.
How's your holiday season been?
Not great. Not great so far. You know, the transition is hard on my soul.
We need to take some time away because the time away will give us the space to think about where to put our energy in the new year. That's where I'm at.
I think that's right. And I'm going high. I'm going to be way up in the mountains, you know,
good.
low oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that, you know, kind of deny my brain some oxygen. That might bring some clarity.
That's good. And with that, it's time for the first pick in the 2024 MAGA draft. The Trump administration has selected Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. Here is Marco defending Trump's mandate for mass deportation and ending the war in Ukraine in 24 hours.
The immigration law of this country is as follows. If you are here unlawfully, you are to be detained until removal. That's the law of the country. He's talking about enforcing our existing laws. In the case of Ukraine, who wants war? What he's talking about is he wants the war to end. Now, as a businessman, he's not going to tell you about his negotiating tactic to bring it to a close, but I don't understand why we would not want a war like that to end. Obviously, you know, you don't have to be a fan of Vladimir Putin to want the war to end. I think the Ukrainians have been incredibly brave and strong in standing up to Russia. But at the end of the day, what we are funding here is a stalemate war, and it needs to be brought to a conclusion because that country is going to be set back 100 years.
Marco Rubio going out there and defending Trump's immigration policy is just the natural thing for him to do. It is a remarkable turn from where he was when he was one of the leaders of the people that thought we needed comprehensive immigration reform. But given that he is up for Secretary of State, I'm more interested in what you think about how he is trying to be the intellectual Zamboni for Trump.
Yeah, it might not seem like a great first pick in the draft, but when you see the rest of the draft board,
Yeah.
I think that you might have a change of view. Marco's policy flip is extremely it is really remarkable. And he ran the 2012 GOP autopsy campaign in 2016. It was like, let's moderate on social issues, let's moderate on immigration, just double down on neocon foreign policy, you know, strong military interventionism. So he's made this pivot in order to stay viable and got a job that he wanted, I think, as Secretary of State, where his role is going to be more kind of saber rattling on the world stage and like finger wagging the UN. Him and Elise Stefanik can do that. Yeah, I think that he'll have influence over things that he cares about in particular that Donald Trump doesn't really care about, you know, like Central America and, you know, Taiwan, like some, at least until China invades. And then on these other issues, he's just going to be Trump's, what did you say, intellectual Zamboni?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's it, right? Like, he's just going to say, look, there's going to be some areas where I'm just going to have to rationalize Trump's, you know, like horrific views and justify them as like, well, guys, this is how Trump plays the game, okay? You know, you got to rub Kim Jong-un's belly because it's all part of this grand plan.
Also, the we're funding a stalemate. What I would expect someone like Marco Rubio to say after that is Joe Biden is not doing enough to defend Europe and the Western world.
Yeah, not giving Ukraine enough weapons to win. That is a real criticism from some on the right. That would have been Marco's view, yeah.
And now he's using it as a justification for saying, well, isn't ending a war always good? Well, you know, that's not what you would have said a fucking month ago. Sure, yes, peace is better than war. I agree with that. That's a pretty good observation, Marco. Hope it's worth it. I hope it's worth it when it's quiet. With the second pick in the 2024 MAGA draft, it's Trump's choice to be our next Secretary of Defense. It's Pete Hegseth. Here's Pete's totally normal stance on women in the military.
We should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. Most of them actually a lot of them are pushed, I shouldn't say most, but many are pushed into a combat track because they're so highly capable. But if they had their first choice, it probably wouldn't be that. I mean, the Marine Corps did the study, and integrated units, meaning male, female, did drastically worse than all-male units. And Ray Mabus, who was the Secretary of the Navy in 2015, said, oh, fuck your study. We're doing it. Because that's what the Obama administration wanted. And everything else changed.
So now we listen to studies.
Yeah, now we love studies. Now we listen to the scientists. What's interesting about Hegseth to me right now is how he is trying to walk some of these positions back in his interviews with Senate Republicans. He's had to walk back his comments on women. He's had to walk his comments back on don't ask, don't tell. Obviously, Pete Hegseth is completely and totally unqualified to be Secretary of Defense. And the fact that we have a Secretary of Defense nominee who's basically promising to get sober if we don't leave him. I mean, that's really where we're at. He's like, please let me have this job. And if you do, I'll stop drinking. Like, that's incredible. I don't want to be glib about alcoholism, but I do, so that's ridiculous.
Yeah, kind of the Darko Milicic of the draft here. I got to tell you, I kind of needed this. I know I'm going to regret this in 4 years, but when I received the text from a reporter friend that the Pete Hegseth announcement was coming, I really breathed for the first time since November in kind of a deep way. And then I had to pull my car over, and I started kind of laughing ugly tears, a bit happy kind of, but also sad. And I just couldn't control myself for a little bit. This is what they're going to do. They're just going to be like, you know what? Fuck it. All right. This person has no qualifications to be in this draft at all across any vertical. All right. Like they don't have the resume. Mm-hmm. They have not demonstrated the leadership skills. Mm-hmm. In their personal life, they're just a total disaster. Alcoholism, I'm also sympathetic. Having divorces, we all go through some stuff. But if you had a friend and they were 39 years old, and at 1 a.m, they were screaming at a hotel staffer about their freedom of speech while they were pushing a woman into a hotel room, I think you gotta clean some things up here.
Well,
bruh.
Here's
like,
what you wouldn't do.
Clean some things up.
You wouldn't hire them to be your lawyer. You wouldn't hire them to be your accountant. You wouldn't put them in a position of responsibility or decision-making authority because you would say, maybe one day, may they have good qualities, but you got to get your fucking life together.
It is a preposterous choice. It is meant to humiliate the people that are going to be forced to vote for this. And it is sure to be a total disaster.
With the third pick in the 2024 MAGA draft, we have Trump's selection of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services. Here's Kennedy claiming he's not anti-vaccine, but anti-fluoride.
I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information. So I'm going to make sure the scientific safety studies and efficacies are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them. I think fluoride is on the way out because of that court decision. I think the faster that it goes out, the better. I'm not going to compel anybody to take it out, but I'm going to advise the water districts about their legal liability, their legal obligation to their service zones and to their constituents. And I'm going to give them good information about the science. And I think that fluoride will disappear.
You know, America's got a lot of problems. It would be great if we could focus on those instead of making new problems, like more rotting teeth.
It's a strong choice at number 3, I think. It might be, some people might say it's a little overvalued, but the pedigree's there. He comes from good stock. Teeth are not really at the top of my priority list as I look ahead to the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. I think that we're going to have a lot of things that we're going to have to fight. If people's teeth start to decay a little bit, Britain seems to do okay.
Trump keeps saying some version of, we're not going to take away the polio vaccine. And he keeps saying it like it's reassuring. It's not reassuring. We don't believe that was on the table. You're like, oh, don't worry. We're not going to take away anything like the polio vaccine. He's like, well, I'm not really worried about the polio vaccine. I'm worried about the many other vaccines that prevent millions of deaths per year.
I saw this press conference with the Ozempic governor of Arkansas. Mm-hmm. I'm blanking on her name.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
I don't know. Oh, yeah, that's right. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And she was talking about how she's on board with the MAHA agenda, Make America Healthy Again, RFK Jr. But it wasn't about getting rid of the polio vaccine or defluorinating Arkansas's water, because Arkansas could use the fluoride. But what she was doing was, we're just going to make sure that people on food stamps in Arkansas can't eat unhealthy food anymore. So we're just going to Boom. If you're on food stamps, all you can do is get leafy greens from now on going forward. And so like that kind of aligns, the MAHA with like a traditional cutting government benefits for the poor. And I think that's a realistic concern that is probably likely to be implemented.
There's this like conflation that's happening. The conflation of over the last couple of decades, we've gotten pretty louche in terms of the kind of chemicals and processing that we allowed on food. And I'm on board with that. Like, it is ridiculous. There are a bunch of additives and preservatives and chemicals and processes.
You want beef tallow back in your French fries? You're for beef tallow.
I mean, more as a moisturizer. But
you like ghee?
That is a real problem. I genuinely think that's a real problem. It doesn't explain America's health crisis. America's health crisis is an obesity crisis. And yeah, that has to do with quote unquote processed foods. But it's really just because delicious, cheaply available, sugary, carby foods are everywhere, and they're more tasty than salads and whole grains, and they're cheaper. And like that is a separate and very, very big problem, none of which will be addressed by defluoridating the water. Speech Center is brought to you by Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health games. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep. Lumen gives you recommendations to improve your metabolic health. A lot of people around Crooked have been using Lumen. It's a great way to keep track of what your body's doing and to help you gamify knowing what's going on in terms of whether you're getting enough carbs or if you're hitting the goals you want to hit. People really like it. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/speech to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen, lumen.me/speech for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. With the fourth pick, Trump has selected Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Here is Gabbard on Gutfeld talking about being on a government watch list.
It was called Quiet Skies?
It's called Quiet Skies. The TSA is the administrator of this very little known secret domestic terror watch list. These federal air marshals saw all of these red flags. They're like, holy why is she on the list? This makes no sense. She's a lieutenant colonel in the Army Reserve. She's a former member of Congress. She's got a security clearance, all of these things. And anyway, they came out and whistleblowers provided evidence to Congress saying, like, this is one of many people who are the targets of political retaliation. There's not a single example of a suspected terrorist that they caught or some evil act that they stopped. Of course. Zero rate of effectiveness. And yet this is what we're paying for.
Okay, Libertarian Tim is here.
Let's hear it, Tim.
I'm with Tulsi on that. Okay,
yeah.
I want to get to the draft pick. Bad draft pick.
Bad draft pick.
Bad draft pick made a good point, though. We shouldn't be putting random people on clear skies based on their travel throughout the world. I'm sorry. We shouldn't be. Libertarian Tim is here, and it's ridiculous, and the TSA is mostly a sham, and we should probably be dismantling most of it. That said, if you will really, this is going to be two gays making a really strange sports analogy.
I'm ready for it.
But this is kind of like you're the Lakers, and you're drafting Tulsi, but her sympathies really lie with the Celtics. And so that's kind of what's happening here. And I think that's the main weakness of this choice, is that I'm not fully confident that the person in charge of our intelligence is actually on the home team. So that's a big concern I have.
It's like she's betting against her team. You know, she's doing she's got some bets. If I had to pick the one that I had to just bet is the least likely to make it through, I think it's Tulsi. First of all, like she was a Democrat. I don't know if she's still technically a Democrat. She's a nut, more importantly.
You'll be shocked to hear that the gossip from her one-on-one meetings with the Republican senators who fancy themselves foreign policy experts, she hasn't exactly lit the room on fire with her expertise.
I've heard the same. You know?
Yeah,
so she's not winning people over. She's not charming them in the room. She's not closing the deal. The only question I have here too is it's like, all right, there have been these kind of gossipy, is she a foreign agent, rumors and stories and innuendo for a long time. And it's like, all right, it's time to put up or shut up here, people.
Who's got to put up?
Whatever's going on in the deep state. It's time for the
deep state to put up or shut up.
If she's got whatever's going on in that FBI file of hers.
Yeah. This is just inside.
Whatever we recorded when she met with Assad, because I'm sure we got tape of that.
The deep state fucking sucks. This is my main aside. The deep state sucks, and if they exist, they're incompetent. And hopefully, if we survive the next 4 years, the next president can replace them with some people that could actually, get the job done.
Right. Like so many other creaking American institutions, the deep state has lost its resolve, has lost its mojo. The fifth pick in the 2024 MAGA draft, we've got a twofer. The Trump administration has both Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. Here's Ramaswamy with Sean Hannity, hyping up what he and Elon will do with what they're calling Doge.
We're assembling the brightest minds in the country. This is the equivalent of a modern Manhattan Project to take on, I think, the major problem holding our country back. It's the federal bureaucracy. Target that cost, save the money, restore self-governance. And Sean, I think we did something pretty novel here, if I may say so. If I just want to say is this Department of Government Efficiency, it is built with an end date. We want to be done by July 4th, 2026. So for the first time in history, creating a department, creating a new government project that is designed to end when its work is complete. That's on the 250th anniversary of America's Declaration of Independence. And that's the gift we want to give this country on that birthday.
False.
Authenticity is just the word that comes to mind when I see Vivek, and just earnest. Like, that's a real guy. You can just like the cut of his jib. He doesn't seem to be doing any phony shtick at all. Not one.
Remember when Sam Smith won? I can't remember if it was an Oscar or a Tony, but they got up there and they said some version of no LGBT person or no gay person or something along that lines has won this award before, and they were just wrong. Sorry to Sam Smith for connecting you to this. That's unfair to you. But no, Vivek, just because you're paying attention to politics for the first time doesn't mean politics didn't exist before you got here. Just because you don't have object permanence doesn't mean the rest of us haven't been here the whole fucking time. Not the first time there's been a government task force with an end date set on it. No, this is not the Manhattan Project. This is a classic blue ribbon commission to look for places to cut waste, fraud, abuse, something that has happened many, many times before. But what he will discover, as all these other commissions have discovered, is that no, federal bureaucracy is not the biggest problem America faces. I think there's too much of it. I think a lot of it is stupid. Yeah, all right, calm down. But
all right, I'm getting warm.
But the federal government is an insurance company attached to a military, attached to a debt servicing institution, attached to a very small bureaucracy by comparison. There is no money in the bureaucracy to solve our country's problems. Barack Obama tried to make government more efficient. He stopped paying attention to it, and then it ended. But I worked on State of the Unions, where the president got up there and said,
I remember those sections. They sung. They really sung.
They were beautiful. They were beautiful. Didn't come to anything.
Well, this one might come to something.
Well,
this is the one difference I've got for you.
Yeah, hit me.
I mean, these guys just might shut this whole fucker down. And he said before the election that he thinks people should feel pain. And I just think that the guys that drafted Elon, they're going to have a lot of regrets. I think that there's going to be some second guessing of their choice. He'll eventually move on to something else with his ADHD. And I do think that they will go in there and at least break some things before moving on.
What's frustrating about all of this is that arrogance of Vivek and Elon is standing in the way of maybe there are smart and interesting reforms that you could put in place. Oh yeah, there are. I mean,
we did live through this with Obama. You mentioned the Obama State of the Unions. For those who, just woke up yesterday, like Vivek, it was Boehner that killed the deal, actually. Mm-hmm. Obama wanted to do a deal that cut government and made things more efficient. It was Boehner that killed it because of his right flank. Everything that's old is new again. And so, yeah, sure. If we lived on a different timeline, a different multiverse, it would be possible that occasionally the Republicans would win and occasionally the Ro Khannas of the world would work with them to make things more efficient and make services better for people. And then we could all sing happy, happy, joy, joy together. But that's not our timeline. We've got the 5th pick in the draft here, the Vivek Elon two-headed monster. And they're going to be live tweeting this bitch.
And our last and 6th pick, we have Trump's selection for head of the FBI. It's Kash Patel.
Ray Epps was on FBI's most wanted list one day, and the next day he was off of the FBI's most wanted list. There are only 2 ways that happens. You die, or your informant. Put that aside. Under congressional testimony, Jill Sanborn, who I used to work with, the head of the FBI Counterintelligence Division, in charge of all these investigations, testified under oath when Senator Cruz asked her, flat out, were there federal agents involved with January 6th? And she said, quote, Senator, I can't answer that at this time. Not if the answer was definitively no, having been a DOJ FBI guy myself, she would have gone there and said, nope, absolutely not. The reason she said I can't answer that is because of the same stonewalling they gave us during Russiagate with Christopher Steele, Halper, and everybody else.
One problem, there's only supposed to be one FBI director at a time, and that FBI director is in a 10-year term. But have no fear, Christopher Wray, head of the FBI, has decided rather than stand up for the institution he leads, he is going to leave with his tail tucked between his legs and just resign to avoid the fight so Trump can pick an FBI director. Yet another example of someone, I don't know why, deciding to give Donald Trump what he wants, because as a society, we just kind of do that now. Donald Trump has chosen Kash Patel, whose only qualification of importance to Trump seems to be the fact that he'll do whatever the fuck Donald Trump wants, often without being asked. This is the guy who just made up the fact that they had approval from the Nigerian government to conduct a military operation that could have potentially led to the deaths of hostages and American service members. You read, there was a great profile of Kash Patel in The Atlantic. One line that jumped out was, this is the guy that would break into the Watergate without having to be asked. I'm paraphrasing.
The thing that is most concerning about the FBI is that there's a lot of free reign to troublemaking before you get into checks. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so Kash Patel, if he is confirmed as FBI director, has already demonstrated himself to be somebody who cares about vengeance, has written in the book about the people in the deep state, that incompetent deep state we were talking about, that he wants to target. And to me, that is the thing that makes me the most concerned sitting here today about the next term. And I expect him to be the one to act in the most vile manner as well.
So, Tim, we have Marco Rubio, we have Pete Hegseth, we have RFK Jr., we have Tulsi Gabbard, and we have Kash Patel. Who do you think will be the MVP? That's most vile politician.
Nice one, John. Well, I got to take that last pick there. Kind of like the Nuggets star Nikola Jokic, famously a second-round pick, was drafted during an Enchilada ad for Taco Bell. They didn't even say his name. It wasn't quite that kind of snub for Kash Patel since you got to him there at the very end. But I got to go with Kash.
Kash Patel is a menace in the same way that Trump is a peculiar menace. These are specific people with specific qualities, and those qualities make them particularly bad and poorly suited to these roles. I do think it's worth keeping in mind as we head off into the holidays and think about the future that Kash Patel is only a threat because of the brokenness, failures, weaknesses in our broader system. We worry that the American people aren't going to give a shit, and that we've gotten to the place as a society where people are so frustrated, disappointed, angry at the system, dissatisfied in fundamental ways, uncaring about the role of government, unsympathetic to the arguments of politicians, that these guys can get away with murder. Like, yes, these are terrible people. These are terrible players, but we have to figure out how to change the game, because I hate the game. I hate the game.
Merry Christmas, one and all.
And Tim,
that is great.
I hope you have, we got to change the game, Tim. I hope you have a great time in the mountains with your family.
I hope you all have a great holiday.
A lot of great times ahead. A lot to look forward to.
A lot of merriment, cheer.
A lot of merriment and cheer. Everybody take a good break from the news. And let's come back fresh and chipper. Like, subscribe, leave us a comment, and we will see you all in 2025. Tim Miller, you're the best. Thank you so much.
Love you, John. Peace on earth to all. We'll see you soon, baby.